Hi, and welcome to another episode of Mentor Chat. Today we have David from the Good Sam Foundation, and they have a very inspiring journey that that brings hope and comfort to a lot of people. And it's been a very inspiring story that we're going to hear from David. David, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. So, just to start off, right? Let's go back to where everybody makes a decision in their life, while you're studying, maybe something about your family, your native place, and the thoughts that shaped, what you would like to do in the future. Maybe, let's say, when everybody starts thinking, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
Right? So let's say from a school perspective, right? Something about that.
No, I'll actually go back a little beyond that because suddenly as you posed this question to me, a few thoughts came rushing back to me, of my childhood.
Yes.
Because my dad was a veteran of the Second World War.
Awesome.
Yeah. And he fought against the Japanese who were coming in through Burma. My dad was in Burma at that point in time. And he was drafted into the then British Army.
Yes.
And he was part of the Burma Auxiliary Force at that point in time. So I think they were kind of a ragtag force which was supposed to keep check of the Japanese progress through infiltration through Burma. And at that point in time, there were a lot of people from Burma who were trekking into India because the bombing had started over Rangoon and Burma.
Okay.
And so my dad used to tell me about all these war stories when I was little.
Yes.
And he used to talk to me about how
little were you?
Maybe 2.5, 3 years.
You remember from there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I had very unusual stories that I grew up with.
Okay.
Most people tell children about those very nice, happy stories. But I think that has a lot to do with what I do today.
Okay.
Because what Dad shared with me was about a lot of suffering. It got me, at that point in time, it was just a story. But he told me about how bombs fell in residential areas. And then how after all the sirens stopped, there would be trucks going through those areas and they would pick up pieces of what was left of people and throw them in the back of the truck. Because those bombs would have blasted in those areas and then the shrapnel would have cut people into pieces sometimes who were fleeing those areas.
So these are mostly civilians?
Yeah, civilians. And so these stories screamed to me as, over the last few years when I started doing work with people with bad wounds. And so I feel some way, there was some kind of a connection with what I'll be doing much later in life.
True.
So these early stories kind of shaped my thinking in a very different way because I heard about families being broken, people not finding their loved ones, people dying on the wayside. And most important, my dad was very exceptionally great at describing all the gory scenes of war and its destructions and the aftermath. I think Mom never used to be around when he used to tell us these stories. These were stories to put us to sleep in the afternoon so we don't trouble the neighbors.
It's supposed to be bedtime stories,
yes. But fast forward from there, the next thing that I realized was, I was in the corporate world and, working and I started my career in sales. So I used to go out and do a sales job. And then went into HR consulting, and that took me traveling around. So I traveled a lot on my jobs, on all my professional engagements. So be it sales or HR consulting, because I handled different regions at one point in time. And then as I progressed in my professional career, I was also handling roles which was global in nature. So I used to even travel to several other countries. But somewhere in me, I think these thoughts of, those childhood stories did have an impact. And I think I was always moved very easily to connect with suffering, to connect with people's problems, to connect with situations which seemed hopeless. And I think that was something that kind of moved me to do many things beyond my professional life.
Got it. No, that was something very different when when we have a lot of parents in today's world trying to protect their children, right? Trying to build a scenario which may not be very practical in the real world, right?
Yeah.
All these fairy tale stories and all this sort
happy
of
endings.
Happy endings, which I believe in some sense would actually be a deterrent when they go to real life. Right?
Yeah.
At the same time, you have grown up on this story of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Right. Because this is what defines people at the time of crisis, is when people's real spirit is defined.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure your father went through a lot of that. A lot of decisions, a lot of heartache, a lot of tragedy. That sort of shapes a different human being.
Yes.
Right. So you mentioned you finished business. Was your
business
graduation
administration, and then
in Bangalore?
Yeah, in Bangalore. Yeah.
Okay. So while you're doing business, what was, at that point of time, what was your thought? Like, what were your motivating factors, like while you're doing a degree, in terms of life, in terms of career?
Yeah, for me, it was, I'm a person who's always been joyful in spirit. And I think that defines me best.
Okay.
And I think it helps a lot today because I deal with so much suffering. So I better
Absolutely.
be joyful. Otherwise, I could just go the other way.
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, it was all about just having great fun in life, making every day count. And I think I still continue to do that till today.
Awesome.
So for me, it was, I never thought too much about career. I never thought too much about earning big money. For me, it was all about being really happy every day.
Okay.
And finding different ways to be happy every day. And I always ensured that whoever was with me or whoever I was with at that point in time was having just great fun.
Great fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So philosophy is very simple. Just
be happy today and
absolutely
live for today and do what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And after college, I believe you ventured into a sales position.
Yeah. For some time, I was even thinking of the Merchant Navy. I did that radio officer's course and stuff like that. But then you have a series of competitive exams and you have to take them. So on my first couple of attempts, I didn't make it. And but I ran out of time because my mother was retiring. My parents got married fairly late in life, and my dad was already post-retirement when I was a little fellow. So, I mean, just trying to take those first steps into work and things like that. So I had to start providing for the family. So responsibility hit me fairly early. By 21, I had to start working. And so the easiest job I think I could get onto was a sales job, because people said, if nothing else, you can talk well. So that was the easiest thing. And there I was selling a whole lot of things to people.
Got it.
So,
and after sales, what other areas?
Yeah, so as a few years went by, I progressed through a few companies selling different things, right from pagers to electrical products. I worked with the Kirloskar Group. First started selling Motorola pagers, then with the Kirloskar Group, then worked with Satyam Infoway, which then became SIFI Limited. Then post that, I moved into HR consulting, because at some point I felt, while I was, I think, reasonably good with sales, I wouldn't say the best or maybe among the top performers there, but I felt I related with people in a very special way.
True.
And so when I was talking to one of my bosses and I was having this conversation with him, he prompted me saying that, David, you could probably look at a role which has more to do with people.
Yes.
And that's when I explored a few things, and I got this opportunity with Kelly Services into a consulting role where I started dealing with people and careers and things like that. Very, very different from all the sales I used to do.
True.
But I felt it was a lot more challenging in its own ways, because you couldn't take that lightly. You can get someone to buy a product and and generate revenue. Yes. It's a transactional kind of engagement. But when you're working with people and you're working with careers and their lives,
much more deep.
Yes, you're not only putting food on their table, you're actually impacting their whole family and their way of life.
Absolutely.
Post that.
Absolutely.
So I felt there was a lot more responsibility attached to that role, and you had to do it well. Yeah. So those are things that I enjoyed doing, and that went on. And then slowly, I think the last part of the consulting job moved me into the corporate side, where I worked with a large engineering company and then handled talent acquisition for them globally. That was my primary role. And for a short while, I did a little work around people strategy with a consulting firm that they engaged with, and also corporate communication for the group. Yeah.
Got it. Just touching a little bit on talent acquisition.
Yes.
So comparing, the time, ultimately everything is people.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
So when you're recruiting, at the same time, you have to keep the profile of the person you're recruiting, the company's interest, the company's culture,
Yeah.
whether the person is a good fit or not.
Yeah.
Right. How is it different from today? Let's say I'm just talking from a talent acquisition point of view.
Yeah.
How does it differ? Like, according to your opinion, between then and today?
Today, I think the way talent is looked at also has changed a lot. Today, there's always revenue attached to everything. And I think things were different at that point in time. We looked at people as human beings and then trying to build value around those human beings.
Yes.
And businesses then, monetize that over a period of time.
True.
But today, I think everyone's got in that trip of instant nirvana, and we want to sow
More of
today
a
and encash
statistic.
things tomorrow. Yeah.
Today you looked at just like maybe a statistic.
Yeah, you're just another number.
Just
Yes.
another number, and if you deliver, it's good. If you don't deliver,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah. Just another cog in the
just
wheel.
another cog in the wheel. True. So that might have had an impact on you, right? Because you are more of a people person, and you are
Yeah.
more about
Yeah,
more of a humanity-based intervention is
Yeah.
where you come from.
yeah. And I think that was, very unique about the job that my last corporate job, where I worked with LG Equipments,
Okay.
a Coimbatore-based large engineering company that manufactured industrial compressors.
Got it.
This company had a very different philosophy which connected with me very intimately.
Oh.
And I really enjoyed the job. I would say that was the best job of my professional career, because I still remember, early up as I got into the job, my managing director having this chat with me and telling me, David, you come on board and you're responsible for hiring. And the corporate office was on Trichy Road in Coimbatore. He said, I don't want you to be standing on the highway and, roping everyone you see going by and filling the benches there or the workshop. We need to look at people who can build this company, because this company was going places at that point in time, from being a very India-centric company to expanding its global footprint. And so it was very, very strategic in terms of how this company was thinking at that point in time. This was in 2010.
Okay.
When I joined them. I left them in 2017. But I think the value that this company attached to human capital was immense. And that was bedrock in this company. And so most people who would come into this company, I think during at least the first 4-5 years that I was there in the company, I could see people, most of them being LG lifers who would retire from there. There were people who will come, simple shop floor people who would sometimes come and say, I'm willing to die for this company. That's the kind of passion with which they connected with this company.
Nice. So that was your last assignment before you started your own one.
Yes.
What was the trigger to start an NGO, or what sort of?
No, I think for me, connecting with people and with people who are going through difficulties and suffering in some way was always part of my life. And I think right from early up in my career, I always set aside something for my salary to give away or support some specific needs that came my way.
Okay.
And this was always part of my belief system as well. And I always felt that we are doing all these things because, we have a certain responsibility to cover. And the responsibility is not just me and my family, but at least another family that we can reach out to. So that was always on the back of my mind. And so right from, I think the beginning of my career, when I started, say, even say late 90s onwards, I was started setting aside a little bit of money every month, which I was giving away. And then this kept going quietly, and I was not discussing about this with anyone. There are many things that my family never knew of, but I would just deal with a few things quietly. Till I came to about 2016, when that corpus had increased substantially by then, and it had got beyond what I was doing. So the ask rate had increased beyond what I was giving. And at that point in time, I felt that it would be a good idea to reach out to a lot of friends of mine who can give, because I knew of people who were happy to give, but didn't know where to give.
True.
So I said, okay, it could be a good time to start an organization and do a little more, run it professionally. And so that was one of those triggers that got me to starting an NGO, because I felt there was a lot more that we could do for society around us.
Got it.
So I hope that kind of answers.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's how I started the NGO. But then what happened after I started the NGO was, again, that was the next part of it. Because between 2016 to 17, I was in this corporate job where I was well set in this company, doing extremely well. I was almost there for about 7 years, feeling very happy with all that.
Very comfortable.
Yeah, very comfortable, settled. Very respected also. And I think there was a great amount of mutual respect with all my senior colleagues and even my peers out there. So I think I'd set myself up for, I was 45 years of age, and with, enough of, runway ahead, to really land it well. But somewhere, I think in that, between 2016 to 17, somewhere inside me was a vacuum. And that vacuum was getting bigger and bigger.
In spite of all this.
Despite all this, yeah. And I felt this vacuum was kind of, in a way, getting me very restless. Because on one side, after I started this NGO, people started getting to know about us. And I had so many people trying to reach us. And one of my trustee, who was based in Bangalore, would keep calling me and saying, "David, when are you coming back?" And I have no clue when I'm coming back. And there were many things that she would always rely on me to take those calls, because she had no clue what to do with some of them, because they were first-time calls to us.
Sure.
And sometimes we had to be there personally to deal with it. So it was very challenging, and it provoked some thinking within me. And I was just thinking, there are so many people who are going through such hell and just don't know where to turn to. And they're calling us, and we just don't have the time. And I used to be sitting in meetings back to back, and so many meetings that used to take my time. Well, it was a corporate job. It was a responsibility that I had to fulfill there. But somewhere within me, I was wondering whether it made sense. It was seeing me very comfortable, but at what cost? Somewhere I felt that we have a responsibility beyond us. And that was tapping on the door of my heart somewhere, really knocking hard and saying, "Hey, think hard." And that pushed me to take that hard call I realized, for some time I was toying with the idea of managing the NGO and then trying to run the company. My boss was aware that I had started an NGO and manage and doing my, fulfilling the corporate responsibilities. But then I felt that that's not something that will really happen. I won't be able to do justice on both sides. I took that hard call in 2017 and moved out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was it on the personal front? Because in one area you're very comfortable, everything is looking good, family is there to take care of. But now this is something, I'm not sure if it resonates with the entire family or it's a decision which you have to take.
No, absolutely. Because I think, my wife was the happiest person when I quit the corporate job, because for a few years, she said, you had absolutely no time for the family. You're always traveling. You're always here. You're always there. So I think for her, it was a great thing that I was quitting this job. But in her mind, it was, okay, this fellow will quit this job and get onto something that's a little more easy and make more time for the family. That was in her mind.
That was in her mind.
Yeah.
And the kids?
The kids were at very, very important stages of their life. My daughter was just moving into a postgraduate program. My first son...
When you decided to quit?
Yes, when I quit.
When you quit?
And my daughter was just moving into a postgraduate program. My first son was in the final year of his undergraduate program. And my second son was just getting through his class 12 and wondering what to do in life.
Wow.
And I was the sole breadwinner of the family, and I quit. And from the very next month, there was no salary coming in. But well, as I told you, I was a very joyful person. And I remained joyful because I said, okay, I've got all my settlements. This will see me through for some time till I figure out what
I'm supposed to do.
And I think I worked very hard. So let's just chill for a little while. So I took that time off. So the next 2-3 months, I did that. But somewhere I felt that, it wasn't, I needed to do something. I couldn't be a person again to just sit around and have so much time at my disposal. And my wife also came to me by the second month and said, asked me, it was very funny. She came and asked me, how is it you're not looking for another job? I said, you were asking me to sit at home, be here, and never around. And in 2 months, you're telling me about, you're prompting me about finding another job. So, but somewhere, being a HR guy, being a talent acquisition guy, this was really ironic because I was struggling to just make my own CV because I had not made my CV in quite some time. And then even putting together my own CV was just not happening. So I let another month go by. But by that time, I was very clear I had to do something. And I felt that maybe I didn't want to work for someone else because I needed that time to work on the NGO.
Sure.
So I said I had to do something on my own. So I started another company. I started a consulting firm called Blue Waters Consulting, which did senior level executive hiring. And as I think God was very good, He got my ex-company, that was LG Equipments, to outsource all their campus hiring to me.
Oh, nice.
So I took that on because I championed the whole campus hiring program for almost 7 years with them. And so they were very happy to give it to me. So I had business coming in from the day I started out on my own. And what better start to have?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think when you take those calls and those are hard calls and those are selfless calls, God has a very different way of giving it back to you. Yeah, and taking care of you. And so I saw those things happen. And Blue Waters Consulting grew from zero revenue in the middle of 2017 to in the next 3 years, we had clocked almost 40 lakhs of revenue every year, which is starting from scratch, which no one knew about. Absolutely. And we were 3 people clocking that kind of revenue. So I had all the time in the world to do my NGO work. I had enough of a cushion to run my family and, joyful as ever.
That's great.
Yeah.
So coming to the next part of the NGO, I'm not sure, maybe you would have foreseen the challenges or maybe it would have been much more than you would have foreseen. So how was that journey? Starting an NGO, maybe you have something in heart, this is what I want to do. But when you get into the field, how was it?
Yeah, no, when we started out, I think we just took on everything that came to us. Someone would come and say, we need help with school fees, we pay that. Someone needs some medical help, we do that. Someone has some house problem, we'll get involved there. All sorts of things we were supporting. Everything under the sun, which was, a serious pain point, we would try to help with. So it was truly trying to just be the Good Samaritan everywhere possible. But as we started doing that, we somehow started getting narrowed down to working with people we landed up working with 1 or 2 people with spinal cord injuries. And it's so amazing how this community of people with spinal cord injuries work, because I've seen this particular community connect with each other irrespective of religion, caste, creed, no boundaries, absolutely. Because there are a bunch of people who've kind of lost almost everything thinkable in life, No joy at all because they can't move around. They're paralyzed, some of them neck down paralyzed, some are waist down paralyzed. They'll never walk again. But the moment one person knows that they're getting help from somewhere, 10 other people will know the next day. You don't see this happening among people who are well off.
True.
because we try to get as much as we can for ourselves.
Yes.
We don't bother too much about the person next door.
So how do they know about each other? And
They network
They
so
just
well.
network
Yeah,
so
they
well.
connect with each other. They network with each other. They get to know through some other NGO, and that's how they connect. So we started doing work with a couple of spinal cord injury patients because there were other large NGOs which were supporting rehabilitation of such patients from the disability space. But then there were a lot of things that fell between stools over there because some of them would require a surgical intervention. Now, the NGO will say, I'll do the rehabilitation, but I can't do surgical intervention.
True.
Someone else will come and say, hey, they are rehabilitating me, that's fine, but my kids are out of school because I'm the primary breadwinner and I can't afford it. And my kids are out of school. Now, the NGO says, sorry, rehabilitations are space, and so that you figure out. Somewhere this troubled me a lot. And I said, how can you say you are impacting his life when you're saying, I'll touch this part, but the rest of
But
it you can
he has
go
to
and
take
figure
care.
out. Yeah. If he had the means, he wouldn't be coming to you.
True.
Some of them don't even have the connections. So we started handling these pieces which were falling between stools. So if someone needed fees to be paid off for their children, we send them back to school. We got that covered. If someone had a surgical intervention, the NGO would say, the other NGO which was supporting them would say, maybe I'll give you 7,000 rupees for a, and 7,000 rupees barely gets you admitted and treated for one day in a hospital today.
True.
And imagine the person has to go through a surgical intervention. So we raised that money and covered that. At one point in time, we would have the social welfare department of St. John's Hospital calling us and saying, we've got these 2-3 cases, can you help us? And we raised money and supported such cases as well. And so we were doing all these odd things, but somehow getting closer to people with disabilities and serious disability, and some of them requiring some kind of intervention as well. It could be surgical, it could be any other intervention.
It could be a holistic thing. So
Yes, yes.
every aspect of their lives,
We
maybe
started
have to
touching
start
that.
looking
Yeah.
at.
So while there was maybe some NGO which was doing some major piece, which was maybe the rehabilitation thing and giving them some support in some way, all the other parts which were enough reason for them to still fall apart was getting covered by us.
So how do you get all these resources? Because each one is from different fields.
Oh yes, I think over the years, I told you that I had my own personal interest in doing some social work, and I used to do that.
Okay.
So a lot of people who used to, who I used to connect with, and after I started my NGO, a good number of them were from the corporate circle.
Okay.
And so they were very shocked that, I quit a job which I was sitting very
To do
pretty in
this,
to
yes.
do this kind of work. And so everyone who was trying to connect with me after I quit the corporate job, their first question was like, what you're doing there, how you managing, how you taking care of your family, and all these, typical questions, but very, predictable as well.
Yes.
Because it was like I've done something really crazy and out of the way. And so a lot of them came and saw what we were doing, or when they connected with us, they felt it was good to give us or support us with some of these things. So what we would do is I would send them, maybe some information. I'll speak to the person we are helping and say, okay, we'll try and raise some money for you, but I'll have to send some information about you so people know what it is. So at that point in time, sometimes we would get them to directly pay it into St. John's Hospital, favoring that particular account. So that person gets covered there. So we don't need to handle those transactions and everything in between. So that way people knew that there was a lot of credibility. We built that credibility.
Built that whole credibility and trust.
So people at one point in time were just happy. Anytime we tell them that we have this kind of a need, they were happy to give us the money. And because in the first 3 years of starting the NGO, we didn't have an ATG. We didn't have a 12A. So all the money that had to come in, we had to pay tax in the first few years. And we couldn't give tax benefits to
anyone.
So for any of their donations. But with all that, people started giving us. But in the beginning, it was difficult. But that's why I felt the Blue Waters consulting firm that I started off.
It helped a lot to sort of...
It ran everything. In fact, all salaries of the NGO for the first 3 years were paid. Most of them were paid out of by the consulting firm. We generated enough money to pay for my family and for so many other families we served.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then we transitioned out of the consulting firm. Is that
well, Blue Waters Consulting was I think an amazing firm. It was for the first 3 years. And the fourth year, we hit the pandemic in 2020.
Oh, okay.
When the pandemic hit, Blue Waters Consulting went underwater.
Okay.
And that's when the NGO really took off, because it was in the peak of the pandemic when most other companies were laying off people. We were getting frantic calls from people saying, we need help.
We need help.
And we're down with bed sores, no one coming and seeing us. And we, by that time, knew what bed sores can be. So we said, okay, we'll try and go out and start supporting some of these people with bed sores.
Okay.
And so that's how we started doing that.
Okay.
But when we started going out, there were that got a lot of attention, because the first and second wave of the pandemic were the worst. When people were dying all around,
Yes.
the vaccine had not yet come in.
A lot of requirement for
And
oxygen cylinders.
yeah,
hospitals.
absolutely. So it was pandemonium, right?
Absolutely.
And so that was a time when we felt we had to go beyond, and that beyond meant it was putting our own lives at risk. But it was a hard call to take, because we had so many people calling us saying, and some of them were 2-3 people affected by COVID and with bed sores.
God.
No one's going to ever touch them in some rural place or just beyond Bangalore. No one's ever going to.
How big was your team then?
We didn't even have a team. We just had a couple of volunteers.
Wow.
One was a friend of ours who's one of our advisory board members. She was a wound therapist. She was daring enough. She was based in Mangalore. So she said, David, I can come and help you, but you'll have to get me permission. So I wrote to the commissioner of Mangalore and sent him a couple of pictures of wounds, terrible wounds, and said, we need to treat this and I need permission. And they gave her permission, and she drove down to Bangalore. She helped us with the first few cases that we managed. And post that, it's been non-stop. We just went on from strength to strength and built the whole wound care program. Yeah.
Okay. So, David, to understand a little more about the Good Sam Foundation, so talk to us about inception and the journey till today, and what are the challenges we faced? What is our mission? What is the mission for the future?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think when we started off, we had no clue we will be doing what we're doing right now.
This was 2017, correct?
Yes. In 2017, we were just such a broad-based service organization, and we're just serving all sorts of needs and supporting all sorts of requirements that came to us. But then slowly it got narrowed down, and towards the pandemic, I think it became, very defining in the way we would go after that, right? So things got very well defined, I would say. Because at the pandemic, everything changed. Because then we started focusing with serious intent on people with spinal cord injuries and with wounds. When I say wounds, these are very bad pressure sores or bed sores, as they're commonly known.
Yes.
And these, so the kind of cases we came across, not only in Bangalore, but out of the city as well, and across rural areas, are people with 8 to 10 big bad bed sores, some on their head, some on different parts of their body. And these would be hugely challenging to deal with, because they would be like grade 3 ulcers or grade 4 ulcers, which are, just to give a layman's expression of how terrible they are, this much of my hand will go into the body of the person. And you have rotting flesh, which needs to be scooped up. Unbearable sting to work in. And so over the last few years, and then to compound things is that these guys lose sensation. They don't have control, bowel or bladder control. So they are like big babies that need that kind of care, and they need to be lifted. They can't help themselves, a dead weight. This can wear anyone thin, right?
Absolutely.
And so the kind of the complexity around dealing with these kind of things, I think, can be enormous for anyone, any family to deal with. And I felt it was very important for us to be there, because wounds by themselves can be repulsive. Yeah, these kind of wounds. Imagine it's like having a corpse rotting in your own house. The guy is not dead. You can't dispose him off, and you can't get you don't know how to deal with it. And no one wants to do it. The hospitals are willing to do it. If you are willing to pay them a princely sum, take them into a good hospital, they're willing to do it. But again, it's not something that anyone enjoys doing. It's a dirty job. But then we felt that by doing this, we are not just assuring a future for this person who's affected, but we are impacting the whole family and the generation for generations to come. Right? He's no more going to be a bane or a burden on society. Well, the person who's affected often feels, a lot of them have attempted suicide, and quite understandably so. Some of them have attempted suicide and failed at that. So you can imagine the level of depression. So the kind of people who get referred to us are not people who just suffer a spinal cord injury, go to hospital for 3 days and come here. These are people who have gone back and forth to hospitals, lost everything, and they just want to end it. That's it. And then someone says, there are these guys called the Good Sam Foundation. Why don't you try them? So some of them come to us and they are like in a trance or a spell.
They lost
under
all
a
hope.
spell. Yeah. They're just depressed, looking out in one corner. You're talking to them and they don't hear you. They don't respond. And but we are always there by their side. So someone's talking to them, someone's touching them, someone's holding their hand. And in about a week's time, you'll suddenly notice that the fellow's looking at you. Then in a few days, sometimes they start smiling. So I'm very often asked, do we have counselors? Do we have psychologists to work with these people?
I was about to come to that question.
Yeah. But the answer is we don't. Yeah.
We don't need.
We don't need. I think just being with them, I can tell you, this is something that I've experienced over the last 3-4 years. Just being with people, holding their hands, journeying with them. Initially, it used to wear us down. I used to go back home, just crash because I'd be so, disturbed in my mind.
Overwhelmed,
Yeah, overwhelmed by all that I've dealt with through the day. But from there till today, I can say when I find a person who's come in with a nasty wound, which is rotting away, unbearable sting, and I'm waiting to smell that wound because I've developed an intimacy with wounds. And by the odor of the wound, I can tell you, without looking at the wound, at what stage that wound is.
And you have no background in healthcare?
No, absolutely none. Yeah.
Okay. So you have inpatient sort of beds at your place?
Yes.
Okay.
So people can come and stay in our center. We've got a 12-bed facility in Sumanahalli by Magadi Road, and which is about, 13 kilometers from MG Road, to give you some perspective of the distance. And so it's a 12-bed facility where people can come and stay with us from anywhere between 2 months to even 6 months if required, depending on their condition. So what we do is we treat wounds there primarily, and we also handle the rehabilitation while the wounds are healing. So when I say rehabilitation, these are people who are totally bedridden. So we try and train them on how to become independent, manage their activities of daily living, which means brushing their own teeth, taking care of themselves, cleaning themselves. How do you manage all these things?
Yeah.
Trying to bathe yourself. Yeah, doing all this so that you are no more dependent
on others.
And you can free up someone in your house to go and earn some money. Yeah. You don't have to have your spouse or some a caregiver by your side to take care of you 24/7. So these are things that take a little time to get people to move, to do a few things, and how to do it carefully without some of these bed sores or these pressure sores. Yeah, recurring.
True.
So it takes a little bit of undoing before you get them to do it the right way, because now it's a new way of doing things. Their whole life has changed. You're used to doing one particular, everything in a particular way, and now it's no more relevant. You have to find a new way of, doing the same things.
Understood.
Yeah, so it's very challenging, and sometimes it can be very frustrating for the person who's trying to move forward. So we also have a buddy system where we get some of those stars who have come out of our center to buddy with them, to give them a call, to come by and visit them, to inspire them, and to tell them about all that they're doing after, they've
They have
survived
survived.
suicide and the rest of it.
So it's more of hope.
Yes.
They have
Yes.
something good to look
Yes.
forward to.
So we do that as well.
Nice.
And so these guys, as they start suddenly seeing those, and we lay for them very clear milestones. So the moment they pass one, they start, becoming more cooperative, and then they want to hit the next one and the next one. And then life becomes a joy for them. In some time, they're waiting to go out and show everyone and the world that wrote them off what they can
back.
do. Yeah, I'm back.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we have many such journeys.
Yeah, we've had a lot of them who've come through us. This center has been around. The Sumanali Center has been around for the last year and a half.
Okay.
So in the last year and a half, I think we must have crossed about 33 of them who've come in and got treated. Yeah.
Nice. What's the next way forward,
Yeah.
David?
So for us, I've always felt that holistic support is very important.
Okay.
Because if you're looking at supporting people like this, it's a very different category of people you're working with. And spinal cord injuries is still not, while it's a recognized disability, there aren't systems which are strong enough, either provided by the government or even government infrastructure that supports these kind of needs. So I think it's also, going forward, we'll need to look at how we can engage with the government also.
Okay.
Because now we've done a lot of credible work in not only the rehabilitation part, but wound care. Wound care, again, is another gray area. So it doesn't come under any of the listed disabilities. But again, just those nasty wounds can leave you totally disabled.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't come under any disability. So no one knows under what category to put it and how to consider supporting it. When I talk to CSR, to companies for CSR funding as well, and I tell them I'm doing wound care, they say, okay, we understand, environment, we understand education, we understand some disability in terms of giving. And when you talk of disability, they think of giving wheelchairs. That's the first thing that comes to mind, or maybe some prosthetic limbs or something like that. Or maybe eyewear or, speech and hearing support, things like that. But no one understands that this is a very, very important, the person can die of these wounds. And so when you talk about wound care, they're not even able to fathom what we're dealing with on a daily basis. Till they're willing to at least come and see. So I say, come and see. But again, sometimes it's very difficult you can't bring in anyone to look at those wounds because all those wounds are around your private areas and, you can't just expose that to anyone. So sometimes I show them pictures if they are willing to see. And just one look at it and say, no, this is not our space. I said, okay, fine. Yeah. So it could happen to anyone. And maybe when people tell me that, I said, could happen to anyone. Accidents don't choose anyone, right? Absolutely. It can happen to just about anyone.
So what I'm understanding is there is no sort of backup for this, either in the system or in the CSR.
Yeah.
How do you think that can be changed?
No, I think we need to have more of these conversations. I think over the last few years, we've not done enough in this area of communicating what we're dealing with. So people, and I can't fault anyone for not, if you don't know, you don't know what we're doing. And so I can't fault anyone for not coming forward to help us as well. But I think we need to have these conversations more with people and share about the communities we are impacting or the kind of people we are working with.
Yes.
We don't want to talk about ourselves. It's not about what we are doing, but we want to talk about all those people that we have worked with and how life has changed for them and what they can go on to do.
True.
And we'd like people to come and partner with such initiatives. Yeah.
Okay.
To rebuild lives again, right? And I think that's a responsibility of everyone.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be just us. Maybe different people are chosen for different things.
Yes.
But this is a very difficult area. It's a challenging area to work in. And wounds, again, are, certain wounds will heal quickly, or maybe, and every patient is very different. So every person is different. So certain treatments work very fast with one individual, may take a little longer with others. So you have to be willing to wait there and work your way through.
True.
And also be open to trying out different kind of interventions, right? So that openness is very important. So I think the way forward to address this is, one is, we're looking at different hands to come on and support us on deck in terms of funding some of these programs going forward. Building awareness again is very important, and that also requires some amount of fund support.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is getting best practices to come in. So right now I'm engaging with a few other organizations even outside the country and trying to build some kind of support system where we can bring in best practices, or maybe send our people out to go and learn some of these things and bring the best back in. Yeah. See, we may not have everything because it's an area which is a gray area for everyone. We've kind of navigated through a bit and we found something important enough to work with.
Got it.
But I think there is a great need. In some of the more developed countries, they have some very serious programs built around this. They have some very serious funding initiatives. There are serious research initiatives. We don't see all of that happening here.
Okay.
Even if it's happening in a silo, and it's not connecting with
the larger community.
Yeah.
True.
And I think all research that has to happen has to connect with community.
Absolutely.
Because this is where you're living it. It's not, these are not your lab rats.
Correct.
They are living life every day. You need to connect with them. And you need to be relevant there. So even when we are serving any of our patients, we are rehabilitating them. We are also trying to get an understanding of what their environment is, their home environment. Because once they're done here, they're going to go back there and live. And so if I'm doing something irrelevant here, they're going to come back with a problem again.
True.
So we're trying to build those bridges. And so there's a lot of learning to be done. And there's a lot of information dissemination also that has to happen.
Got it.
It has to go out. People need to, understand that this is serious enough and come on board and try and partner with us to help build this further.
So what are the different ways we can engage with the Good Sam Foundation?
I think one of the ways we can do, I think which will help us quicker would be serious CSR.
Okay.
Where we could get some corporates who want to do something different.
Okay.
Yeah, because we are not in a Me Too space.
Yes.
What we do is very different.
Very unique.
And very unique, yes. And so I think if we can get people who can, or organizations who see this as serious enough,
yes,
I think there's a fantastic roadmap that they can build with a program like this.
Got it.
Because it's not going to be something that you can do for a few months and back off. You can easily look at a program for 3 to 5 years as well.
Yes. Because
there's so much to be done. So I think that's the quickest, because then, a lot of things can go faster because I assume that there would be lesser red tape when you're working with a corporate. Of course, all organizations have their checks and systems in place. So that's fine. We are willing to work with any of those organizations through all that. So the back end can always do its thing, but the front end, the intent on the front end has to be serious.
Got it.
Yeah. So CSR is one, corporate CSR. The other thing is also, I think working with the government is going to be very serious again, and very important when it comes to this, because that's going to make it sustainable over a period of time. So we've built certain models which I think are replicable now, and they're solid models. And each of these models, I would still say, are not done. They are always work in progress, because when it comes to medical health or services such as what we are offering, you can't be content with what you're doing. There's always something you can do better.
True.
Yeah, and so to make these programs sustainable and to take them out, see, we are covering people in Gulbarga, we're covering people in and around Bangalore, and now we're getting people who are referred to us from other cities as well, in Karnataka largely. But it's frightening to think of what people must be doing in all the other cities across the country.
States, country.
Or all the other villages across the country.
Yes. How about from, let's say you mentioned CSR, corporates, government, coming down to an individual or a small community, or, how could we help? Again, you mentioned also awareness regarding this.
Yes.
Any sort of initiatives that we could look at?
For funding, you mean?
For funding, for spreading awareness, because the more people know,
Yes,
the more we
yes.
can get resources in whatever form.
Yes, yes, yes.
Any sort of engagement on that, which is
Yeah, so I think one is, I think we can also build various support groups
okay.
for people like this. For example, we can connect with the people from Paralympic kind of committees and groups, because there are a lot of people from the sporting side who've suffered these kind of injuries and who often perform at Olympic games and things like that. Now, getting some of these kind of people are useful because they are very inspiring.
Correct.
Yeah, so they will help, support these people who are now on recovery mode and give them something to look forward to.
Okay.
That's one thing. Another thing is, if we could also get people who are celebrities, maybe people who have a heart, to give back to society. They could be celebrities from any sphere, yeah, or even corporate honchos who've made it big time, who'd like to come and be part of a thing like this, a mission like this, because it's not just about Good Sam.
Yes.
What we're doing is still very small. We're not even on the tip of the iceberg, I would say.
True.
We're doing very little. We've got a team of 10 members on our team. And you can just imagine what kind of an impact we'll be able to do in a country as large as us. So we're not even talking numbers here. But if we have to take this across to a lot many more people who can benefit from this, and a lot many more families, I think there needs to be a far larger platform that we can.
We should have actually more dialogue around this space.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of, a lot of people talking about this topic, because nobody even understands this topic.
No, I've seen people are very happy to talk the moment they're affected by it. Yeah. So, and as much as I don't want anyone to go through this, but people are most willing to talk only when they're affected. I think in many ways, as a community, life has changed so much. Today, life has become so fast-paced that people don't have the time to stop, look back, think, go. I noticed this even at road accidents that happen in our city. You see someone crash, you're driving, keep driving, as long as it didn't hit me. True. Yeah. There are a bunch of people who will try to help. Okay, they'll do it. Yeah. So it's not like everyone's genuinely concerned to see.
We still have 6 hours to scroll through the phone.
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's just priority, I believe.
Yeah, priority is what matters to me.
It's like a lot of desensitization happening in the community.
Yes.
You're not sensitive to anything anymore.
Yes.
Pretty much with whatever is happening around.
So I think it's a lot of, we need this mind shift also. And at some point in time, see, you can't force this down anymore. No. It has to come from within. You need to understand, realize.
It's just that we can enable the different ways that somebody can discover.
Yes.
Or somebody can interact.
Make the information available.
Yeah.
So that's very important. We can do that.
Any social media handles that you're on?
We are on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook. We are on Insta.
Okay.
But I think we're building a serious engagement on that side. We're trying to
be more dialogues around this.
Yeah, because it's becoming very important for us to do that. To keep sending this information out. I think for the last 2-3 years, we've just focused on just being there and doing things.
Got it.
And so we've just had our heads down and just gone and served. But I think now we have to talk about all that we do, because it's important. That's equally important, I'm beginning to see. Yeah.
Because people can, I think they can already see the proof of concept. They can see, the goodness that is happening. Now it's just a matter of expanding or
Absolutely. For example, now it pains me so much. While we are talking today, my mind and heart is running back to our center where we have a 12-bed facility in Bangalore. It's maxed out its space. We don't have, and we've got 3 or 4 people on wait list with nasty wounds waiting to come in, and I can't send the guys who are in out. I'm not able to send them out because they're still under treatment over there, and I'm not able to take these guys in. How do I help them? And they are not close to me that I can go and visit them also. So it pains me. And I'm thinking, my mind is always going back to what next and who should I be speaking to try and expand the center. The director of that campus has given me a go to expand the center if I want to. But then everything costs, right?
Yes.
And then our team is also quite stretched right now. We need to add resources
More
again.
resources.
And a lot of companies do think of, or maybe even individuals, they're okay about giving some money for some treatment once in a way, but they don't realize
Not
that
a
salaries
continuous
have to pay
engagement.
every month.
Every month.
You have to
True.
pay. And that person is coming there and doing a job without which whatever treatment doesn't matter. You may have the best medication with you, but if that person is not willing to go there and dive into that wound and treat that wound and manage that wound, that, nothing matters.
Got it.
So you need to pay those salaries, and you need to ensure that I need to ensure that my team is really,
Taken
fighting
care
fit
of. Yes.
to do the job that they do. So we try very hard. So our priority has always been that the way we work is to ensure that our team is, really high on their morale. They are fighting fit health-wise. We take very good care of our team members, and we ensure that every team member who's working with the patients or the people in our care treat them like family, because a lot of them have been abandoned by their very own.
True.
Yeah.
So it is a space which is very, very intense.
It
both
is.
for their own families, both for the people caring for them.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
So
Oh yes.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
something very, in today's world, somebody on a mission like this is very inspiring in itself. So we wish you all the best, David. We
Thank
look
you
at
so
how
much.
we can collaborate, and we hope that many more join your mission in whatever ways and resources they can.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I really
Pleasure
appreciate
having
your
you
time.
with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.